The question that every Giants fan is up at night thinking about, and you know it's going to be talked about every day until free agency and or the draft. What are the Giants going to do about AQB1? So in today's offseason Blue Rush, we're going to break down a three-part series on the New York Post Sports website about the Giants quarterback issue. We've got our New York Post Giants beat writer, Paul Schwartz, on with us. Paul, you wrote part one about this year's quarterback draft class, and our NFL reporter for the Post, Ryan Dunleavy, penned part 2 and 3 about possible free agents, quarterbacks that the Giants could go after, and we'll talk with him later on the show. But first and foremost, how you doing, man? I haven't seen you for a while now. Happy New Year, even though it's January 20-something.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Good wishes are always welcome. I like those big buttons on that shirt. It looks very stylish. I like that. I don't know if I could pull that off. Yeah, I mean, it's been, the Giants did not make any changes as far as, Brian Dable and Joe Shane, so that kind of relieves some of the workload. But I was down in Philly last week to see the Eagles outlast the Rams and got to touch base again and say hello after the game to Saquon Barkley, who was on cloud nine and is running like the wind. And boy, it's amazing how it's happened for him, right? We all knew he was a good player, maybe probably a great player, but timing, offensive line, team, need, all that stuff. I mean, it is, the guys like Barry Sanders without the negative yards. That's what he is, right? He always has a run of 50, 60, 70 yards, and he doesn't have a lot of those negative yards. So he's one game away from the Super Bowl. So that's not a Giants deal right now, but it's an NFL deal for sure.
And I feel like Mark Zuckerberg is like a Philly fan, or he's just anti-Giants, because I see Saquon on my timeline every single day, whether it's behind the scenes, having jokes with his teammates on the sideline, or it's the sleep commercial, just anything and everything Saquon pops up on my timeline. He ain't dead to me, Paul. He was always a great dude to us inside in the locker room and all. But it brings us back to the entire quarterback situation. You say you like what I have on, you like my big buttons. You pinned the part 1 series about which quarterback in this draft class the Giants could take, and I talk about the big buttons. Who could they take that's going to be wearing an awesome outfit on draft day? Let's talk about these quarterbacks in this draft class, because it's all over Twitter. It's all everyone's talking about on social media. So break it down for us, sir.
Yeah, look, I mean, before the game against the Colts in week 17, right, the Giants had the number 1 pick.
Yep.
And if we were doing the podcast then, which we probably did, you could say they can take anyone they want, right? Because they have the number 1 pick. They like Shedeur Sanders, take him. They like Cam Ward, take him. They want to take Abdul Carter and not take a quarterback, take him. They can do whatever they want. Yep. Now they're at 3. They're in a good position, but not this year, Brandon. Not this year. It's a rough position. The Titans have the number 1 pick. They need a quarterback. The Browns have the number 2 pick. Deshaun Watson's hurt again. They need a quarterback. The Giants are at number 3. So, look, we don't know how it's going to go. We know historically teams panic and overrate and go crazy for quarterbacks, right? They take them early and often. That's all there is to it. We do know this, Brandon. The Giants need 2 quarterbacks, right? They need 2 quarterbacks. Tommy DeVito is an exclusive rights free agent. He'll be back. He doesn't figure in the plans in any really meaningful way. So they need a rookie quarterback and they need a veteran quarterback. Now, what caliber of veteran and what caliber rookie are we looking at here? With the number 3 pick, I think the Giants are going to feel a lot of pressure to take a quarterback. Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are ranked 1, 2, and 2-1 on pretty much everybody's board. The problem is, you know what they would have been last year?
What's that?
4, 5. They would have been down. No one would have had them rated better than Caleb Williams. No one would have had them rated better than Jalen Daniels, Drake May. And, I talked to David Syverson from Our Lad Scouting Services. He's their main scout. He helped me a lot for the story that's in the New York Post today. And he said he had J.J. McCarthy ranked ahead of, his grades for J.J. McCarthy, who was, a 4th quarterback in that draft, would have been the same, higher than Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. So you want to take an impact player. There's no way anyone can tell me that Abdul Carter, the pass rusher, edge rusher from Penn State, or Travis Hunter, the cornerback wide receiver from Colorado will not have higher draft grades than any quarterback in this draft. We know quarterbacks are graded differently. Maybe they shouldn't be. So, is it wise to take the third best quarterback in this draft? We'll get into that in a minute, who they are. We'll break them down. I'm not even sure the third pick is worthy of using to take Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. I don't love either of those guys. Now, I'm not Joe Schoen and I'm not Brian Daboll. I'm not on the ground, boots on the ground, scouting these guys. They're going to see them, into combine. They're going to see them at pro days. They're going to have them into the Giants complex. They will know more about these guys than I will, certainly. But from what I talk to people, I just don't love any quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, the Giants have done their due diligence on all these guys. I mean, we see things on social media all the time about assistant GM Brendan Brown speaking at Colorado Buffalo practices. Joe Schoen and those guys they went to go check out Carson Beck. They've done their due diligence on all these quarterbacks. But I think one thing where I'm going to agree with you on this, to where it's like a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward may not be, even if they're there, they may not be the guy they take, is because Joe Schoen said when he had his stay of execution about how he's not going to throw that Hail Mary to try and grab someone just to grab someone, being, I don't want to say like a lame duck GM or anything, but being on his ninth life here with the New York Giants, with the franchise. So you wonder if that Travis Hunter player is there, that Abdul Carter is there. We don't know what they're going to do with Kayvon Thibodeau's fourth or fifth year option. And then obviously you're going to want to pair somebody up with Brian Burns, who I know he didn't have the greatest year, but no one on defense did. You're going to want another pass rusher. You need pass rushers, especially when you're going up against a Jaden Daniels twice a year. You're going up against Dak and Jalen Hurts twice a year. So it's going to be interesting on what they do in that third position. But last year, and I continue to see these Hard Knock clips being posted about Joe Schoen's son saying, hey, you only get the job once, go for Jaden Daniels. Paul, the Commanders weren't giving that pick up.
No.
The Patriots weren't giving up that pick for Drake May. And the first pick of the draft, the Bears, they weren't giving that pick up. So I guess this year, let's put our GM hats on. I don't think he's going to want to bend to the pressure of public opinion, that being the fan base wanting the Cam Ward and the Shedeur Sanders. But for the right now, and we've been talking quarterbacks for quite some time now, Paul, since week 6, who do you have? Who do you have ranked? Who are your top guys that could possibly be rocking Giants blue?
Yeah, here's the thing. Look, if Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward are there at number 3, it's going to be almost impossible for the Giants not to take them.
Yeah.
And look, at some point, everything is a leap of faith. There are no guarantee sure things. I want Peyton Manning. I want Andrew Luck. Several years ago, Trevor Lawrence was considered that, right?
Yep.
He was considered a can't miss, bona fide number one guy. So it's, if one of those guys are there, they're going to take him. I mean, I'd be shocked if they don't. And just breaking it down to me, I like Cam Ward better than Shedeur Sanders, just because Cam Ward is bigger. He's 6'2", 220. He's got a big lower body. He's less polished. He's less ready. That's the thing. He's less ready to play right away. I can't see drafting Cam Ward and saying the Giants feeling confident he's our day one starter. He's raw. He's raw. He played it, incarnate word. He played at Washington State. He wanted it to come into the draft before last season out of Washington State, and the draft, the NFL said, don't come out. You're not going to be drafted high. Went to Miami, played great, and vaulted himself to the top of the draft. Good for him. That he used the system and did it. He's a playmaker, but he's just not a polished passer right now. He's elusive. He can run. He's kind of the modern day quarterback. He's not an incredible scrambler, but he can make plays off platform, no question. But he's raw. He's a raw passer right now. Shedeur Sanders is literally the diametrically opposite player. He's not big. I think at the combine he's barely going to measure 6'1". He's barely 200 pounds. Now you tell me Maybe he bulks up to 205, 206 by the time he gets to the combine. You tell me how many quarterbacks in the NFL at 200 pounds are doing great things. Not a lot of them. He is incredibly well schooled. He's been coached by his father in high school, at Jackson State, and at Colorado, right? So he's only been coached by his father. You know what it's like to have a father as a coach, right? You get special treatment, and I don't say that in a negative way. You get TLC, right? So he's well schooled. He's polished. Could he come in and start right away? Probably. He's smart. He's accurate. Unlike his father, he's not a dynamic athlete. His lower body is thin. He's got thin legs. He's not a big guy. That's all there is to it. He's not sudden. He's not, you don't look at him and say, wow, off platform, he's great. He's really accurate and really smart. So those guys, so if one of those guys are there, they're not a perfect prospect, but I think you have to take them.
See,
if they're not there,
go ahead.
Go ahead. What? Yeah.
Well, I'm on the flip side of it, thinking that they would have to go with the Shador over Cam Ward because you don't have the time, you don't have the luxury to develop
that's bad
Cam
thinking.
Ward.
The ceiling is the floor is low for Shador Sanders, right? He's probably not going to be a bust. He's a well-schooled, smart, professional, capable quarterback right now. But the ceiling, I don't think is that high. I don't think, they're going to have a starting quarterback in 2025. I don't know if you want to settle for a guy who is going to be at his best, okay, a game manager. I see Shador Sanders as a game manager. I really do. And that's not terrible. I see Cam Ward as a guy who has to wait and has to learn and has to make some mistakes. And then, so that now you have to have a starter. Look, Eli Manning came in, he was a Manning. He didn't start his first 9 games. It's okay to not start. It's okay to not come in and start. It really is. Drake May didn't start. Jaden Daniels did. He looks like a phenom. Caleb Williams did. Caleb Williams probably should have not started right away. And he had a bad situation there, and he's a terrific looking athlete and quarterback, but he struggled. So, it's not, the race is not won in the first year, but both or one of these guys could be good players. They could be good players or really very good players. The NFL gets it wrong a lot with these quarterbacks. So these are shortcomings. I get it. And you can look at the negatives of all these guys and say, I don't want to draft them. The key is, and now we'll have to get into it, number 3, is there anybody there worth the pick as a quarterback at number 3?
I just feel like on the other side of it, when you know that you're sitting there and you're like, man, you get in your car in the morning, you're like, man, these seats are hot. That's Brian Dable, that's Joe Shane right now. So it's like that seat's warm, so they have to come in and get a polished guy. They have to get a guy. And I think that, being a coach's son and having my dad coach me in T-ball one year, we went from the worst team to the best team. We won the little T-ball championship. We always joke around from worst to first. I think that's going to help him because who was Brian Dable? Brian Dable was somebody that'll get into it with his own defensive coordinator. Brian Dable's the dude that we see go after a Tyrod Taylor and Daniel Jones when he's pissed off. They want somebody that's mentally stable there that can be coached hard. No one's going to coach you harder than your father. You can have a coach you can have one of those hard-nosed coaches that's going to push you for excellence, but a guy like Deion Sanders, to where it's like Shador Sanders is a Bronny almost when it comes to your father. Because of who your father is, I have prepared you for everything they're going to say about you on Twitter. I prepared you for everything they're going to say about you on the field. I have prepared you for these dog moments at MetLife Stadium, to where they could boo you, to where they could be pissed off at you. And the one thing Brian Dable said that he wanted from a quarterback, or the one day the Daniel Jones showed, was the mental toughness. And that's something that from Daniel Jones to throw, I think, 24 or 29 touchdowns his rookie year to kind of digress a bit, we saw that mental toughness kind of go away and fade away. You don't get that at Duke from that coach that coaches at Duke. You get that from that guy that coaches your father. So that's the only way I feel on the flip side of it.
Look, last year 12 quarterbacks. No, last year 6 quarterbacks went in the top 12 picks, right? Mm-hmm. You had the top 3. You had McCarthy, you had Pennick, and you had Bo Nix, okay? And that was unprecedented. So many quarterbacks so high. And then you didn't have another quarterback taken until the fifth round, Spencer Rattler, okay? It was like 140 picks between. That was the longest ever between picks for a quarterback. This year, you have that tier at the top, and then you might not get another quarterback in the first round. Now, you shouldn't get another quarterback in the first round, based on grades and things like that. But these teams can't help themselves. But so okay, so if those two guys are gone, right? Is there a quarterback the Giants should take at number 3? You're looking at Jalen Milroe, right, from Alabama, and you're looking at, I think, Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, Eli Manning school, right? I think those are the only two that are even in the conversation at number 3. And I think both those guys would be wild overreaches at number 3. Wild. You know what I mean? I mean, Lamar Jackson went 32 to the Ravens, right? They traded, the Ravens drafted a tight end in the first round that year, traded back into the first round, and got Lamar with the last pick in the first round, right? Jalen Milroe is most closely compared to Lamar Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson did not go number 3. He went number 32 because he had an incredible physical portfolio, but he was not an NFL-ready passer. Jalen Milroe is like, he is a freak athlete. He is an unbelievable. He is like Lamar, light as far as running ability, but he's damn good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he had 32 rushing touchdowns at Alabama. I mean, the guy, he's a mismatch back there. You have a defender running at him, he's going to get past him. But he is not an NFL quarterback as a thrower. He just isn't. Anyone who watched him in Alabama says he is a guy who's a little bit of a project. To me, you can get him in the second round. I think that's worth it. You have Brian Dable put his hands on him, not physically, but literally and physically and spiritually, to put his hands on him as a quarterback and refine him into a quarterback. So maybe in the second half of his rookie year, he's ready to play. Now you need a bridge starter in front of him, which I think you probably do with any of these guys. Jackson Dart is more of an NFL thrower. The guy from Our Lads, Dave Syverson, told me that he thinks he's the best quarterback in this draft throwing against pressure, against, pass rush coming at him. But he's also a guy who makes some mistakes. He's got a good arm. I don't know if people think he's got a great arm. He's got some of that college stuff in his game they got to get rid of. So those guys, you cannot pick those guys at number 3. No. If Travis Hunter or Carter are sitting here, you can't do it. They're not the same caliber of prospect. They're just not. You know what I mean? They're not. And oh, by the way, the Giants badly need a cornerback. Travis Hunter comes in. He's a starting cornerback. And then if you can get Deonte Banks up to speed, you got two young, I'm not going to call Banks a stud. You got two young guys there. And Travis Hunter can play 15, 20 plays on offense. And do you think you can double team Malik Neighbors if Travis Hunter is lining up wide on the other side? Yeah. I think no. And as far as, you have Thibodeau and you have Brian Burns. Guess what? You can't have too many pass rushers, right? Yep. Why do you take Jason Pierre-Paul when you have Justin Tuck and Osi Umenyiora? It makes no sense. Why do you take Matthias Kiwanuka when you have Strahan and Osi? And Tuck, why do you take them? Because you can't have enough, Why do you sign a good pitcher when you have a good pitching staff? Because you can't have enough. And Shane Bowen, you know what? If you have Abdul Carter and Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, you know what I tell him? Figure it out. It's harder to figure out if you have one than when you have 3. Figure it out, get them all on the field, and away we go. You know what I mean? And then, the Giants are in a tough spot here at quarterback. They really are. They really are, because if one of the top 2 falls to them, I think they take them and they hold their breath and they, maybe don't have to start them right away. And if one of the top 2 don't fall to them, then they may have to manipulate the draft to try to get one later in the first round or early in the second round, and then hope for the best with a lesser prospect.
Yeah, Joe Shane is going to have to be like Victor Wembanyama and play chess with this one, Paul. It sucks too. Obviously anyone would love to be in the position he is as an NFL GM, but when you're thinking about it, you're thinking about the fan base and how the Hard Knock situation went down, the Saquon situation went down. A lot of people that's looking at him like, okay, Joe, they gave you another year. you better get this right. And it starts with free agency, but you had yourself a good draft class last year, but this draft class has to surpass last year's draft class by a lot, and it all starts with what he's going to do with that third pick. And it
Yeah.
didn't help that Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix were able to have the success that they had in their rookie years. And it was two different situations. You know, a Dan Quinn came in, you got Cliff Kingsbury there, there's, you know, this offensive coordinator guru. They rolled Jaden Daniels into that offense. He wasn't throwing the ball much at the beginning. He just if it's not there, take off and use your athleticism. But on the flip side with Bo Nix, he was groomed by NFL veteran play caller and Sean Payton. So it's two different situations that both franchises were in, but the common denominator that both the Commanders and the Broncos were both in when it was time to draft these quarterbacks, no one was on the hot seat at that time. Sean Payton wasn't on the hot seat, nor Dan Quinn.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Jaden Daniels to me is you know, they couldn't get him. You know, as you said, they couldn't get him. You know, I mean, so what? They would have traded up for him. You know, there's a million guys that these GMs are asking, coaches ask, would you trade up for him? Yeah, I trade up for him. He's a great player, you know? Yeah, but you can't get him. You know, they could have taken Bo Nix at number 6. They could have taken Michael Penix Jr. at number 6, and they didn't. They took Malik Neighbors, who looks terrific.
Yep.
You know, if they could do it again, would they take Bo Nix? I don't know. You know, but and the one thing, you know, you mentioned Sean Payton, and you're right. When Sean Payton and the Broncos drafted Bo Nix, what did everybody say? Oh man, if anyone can get something out of Bo Nix, it's Sean Payton. He really knows how to deal with these quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Giants have to do and feel with Brian Daboll.
Yep.
You know, Brian Daboll's not a defensive coach. Brian Daboll's an offensive coach who helped mold Josh Allen into a great player. Helped. Josh Allen's great on his own. He helped make him a great player, right? So any quarterback coming into this system, the Giants have to feel incredibly comfortable and confident that Brian Daboll can do that. That's what he's supposed to be known for. Yep. You know what I mean? He helped Daniel Jones tremendously his first year, and then Daniel Jones got hurt, and then it all went to hell. Yep. So, you know, it's hard. But, you know, yes, this draft class is more than one player, but between free agency and the draft, they need to get a quarterback or two, but you really need one. And the way to do it is to get a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, and you have him for 4 or 5 years at very limited money, very little salary cap space, and that's how you build your team. You know, are they going to, you know, I know you're talking to Ryan Dunleavy, you know, later in this podcast, and, you know, he'll talk about Sam Darnold and you know, Justin Fields and all these guys. To me, retreads are retreads, and sometimes they work, and most often they don't. You got to get one in the draft, and it's as we've said, it's hard this year to find one that makes sense. It really is. It's going to be hard.
Lastly, before I ask you about the Senior Bowl, which you're all set to go down to in a week or so, there's a third tier of these draft class quarterbacks. Cal McCord out of Syracuse, Dylan Gabriel, Oregon. Will Howard probably made himself a little bit of money, jumped up on some people's mock drafts from the Ohio State. Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. At first, I thought he could be in play, but he didn't throw the ball enough for me in that national championship game. Anyone there that's worth scouting or maybe taking in Madden when it comes out next year?
I don't know about taking Madden. They're all worth scouting. You know what I mean? They're all worth scouting. You know, Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round draft pick. Right. You know, I'm not going to mention Tom Brady because that's a one of one. You know, Purdy was the last pick in the draft. So they're all worth scouting. And yeah, I mean, if it comes out that they can't get their guy in the 1st round, they look at it and say, we're not drafting Jalen Milroe in the 2nd round, or he's not available. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're all worth scouting. You know, Will Howard is a big guy, you know, and somebody told me, you know, NFL, you know, people are going to be like his size. You know, he doesn't have an unbelievably great arm, and you know, it's the old song and dance about Ohio State, right? Everyone he throws to is open, right? You know, everybody throws to is open. That's why Ohio State quarterbacks aren't that great. I think in Houston, Texas, somebody there, C.J. Stroud has kind of, he threw to a lot of open guys too at Ohio State. And you know what? He's pretty darn good. So you have to look at the guy and not just say he threw to a guy that was open. Yeah, they're all worth looking at. I mean, like I said, I think after Milroe, who is a project, there's no question, and Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel he's got a lot of NFL traits. He's small. I mentioned that Shador Sanders is small. I don't think Dylan Gabriel's going to measure 6 foot. He's small. And small guys don't. I mean, Bryce Young with the Panthers. Dylan Gabriel is not the scrambler and the athlete that Bryce Young is, but he's got NFL head. He gets that quick release. He's got that lefty slinging thing.
Yep.
He's good, but I don't think he's an NFL big time guy. So Kyle McCord, left Ohio State and went to Syracuse and became an NFL. He'll be drafted. All these guys are worth looking at, but if you draft a guy in the third, fourth, fifth round, he'll come in. Maybe he'll be on the team. Maybe he'll be on a practice squad. It's got to be the first or second round. It really is for any real credible sense. And it's going to be hard. Do you trade up to get one of these guys? You can't trade up. You're not going to trade up to with the Titans or Browns to get one of these guys. You're going to give up a lot. And why are they trading them? If they're trading them, that means they don't like the quarterback. So, like I said, last year at number 3, you just say, you know what? If it's Jaden Daniels, we'll take him. If it's Drake May, we'll take him, and we'll go on. Don't forget, in Hard Knocks, they also said, Joe Shane went over to Elliott Wolf and said, what do you think about number 3? You want to move that? They would have been happy to make a trade to Giants and take Drake May. That didn't work either. The Patriots are happy with him. So, you can wheel and deal and manipulate, but you can't create, big-time prospects if they're not there.
And to go back to the later round quarterbacks that we were talking about, you look at the Giants' history with Cal Uletta and Davis Webb. Davis Webb, great quarterback coach with the Denver Broncos, is going to be an NFL head coach one day. But in terms of on the field, those guys didn't make that Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Brock Purdy like leap that you were talking about. So
most of them don't. Let's face it.
Let's be honest.
95% of them don't. Yeah. So you can say we'll wait to the 3rd round and we'll get Russell Wilson. We'll wait till the 7th round and we'll get Brock Purdy. Good luck with that. It happens. But people win the lottery too. My wife's been playing the lottery for 40 years. Every week I say to her, well, do I have to go to work tomorrow? She said, yeah, you got to go to work. We won $6. Okay. It's like, you got to go to work. Okay. So, look, I'll leave you with this. If we hit big on the lottery, I'm doing one last podcast with you. Okay, Brandon?
One last
I'm coming
dance.
into the studio. We're doing one last podcast. I'm going to buy you an ensemble of new outfits, wish you well, give you a hug. And that will be the end of my podcasting career. Okay.
Hey, you helped get me this job, so you win the lottery. You give me a couple brand new suits. Man, I owe you forever, man. Paul, thanks for hopping on, man. Thanks for
all right, man. Thank you. You go boss, okay? You go boss. Is that good?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, see ya.